Good evening from New York. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Journeys. My guest this evening is Dr. Camille Alleyne. She has dedicated her 20-year career to advancing the areas of aerospace and space technology development, specifically in the fields of human space flight, space vehicle systems engineering, integration and testing, and space microgravity research, and most recently in the areas of space technology application in international development and global science and space education advocacy for girls. Work she does through her non-governmental organization, the Brightest Star Foundation, founded in 2007. Dr. Alleyne has served in several technical management roles with increasing responsibility both at NASA and U.S. Department of Defense. For the last several years, she served as the Assistant Program Scientist for the International Space Station, ISS, a space-based science laboratory. In this role, she developed and managed the communication strategy for ISS research and technology. I am not going to take a break this evening. I'll just bring Dr. Alleyne on. Good evening, Dr. Alleyne, and welcome to CWS Journeys.
Hi, Selwyn. Thanks for having me.
You are quite welcome. I'm going to jump right into this. What is accurate about the way, about how those closest to you describe you?
Oh my gosh. I think they describe me as driven, ambitious, passionate about what I do, about life, compassionate, and someone who is full of life and full of love.
Indeed. You grew up in Trinidad, Port of Spain. Can you give us a glimpse of life for you growing up there at ages 9 and let's say 16?
I had a really great upbringing. I would say we were a middle class family. My parents stressed education. I'm the last of 3 girls, and my mother always said that her girls had to be self-sufficient and that education was the key to a better life. So my life was filled up with school and a lot of extracurricular activities. I danced, I think almost every day, maybe 5-6 days a week, ballet, modern, jazz, tap. And I swam competitively. So I remember going from school to swimming and then leaving swimming and going to dancing and then going home to do homework and get to bed and get up the next day to do the same thing. Also, at a very early age, I remember always sitting on the trunk of my dad's car and being fascinated by space. And so back then, I really didn't know what that was, but I just had a curiosity about space and about the world, really, and a fascination with the night sky. Mm-hmm. We also traveled a lot as a family. And so I became really fascinated by airplanes. So that's the age around 9. Mm-hmm. At 16, I was in high school. I had already dropped swimming, so I continued dancing. And I went to an all-girl high school. And, you know, in the Caribbean, at least in Trinidad's education system, in Form 4, you actually choose your subjects. So for me, math, I excelled in math all through my life. So that was a big deal. And I chose all the sciences. So I was like one of 10 girls in my class who were brave enough to select sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, advanced math, we call calculus now.
I want to jump forward a little. Mm-hmm. We'll come back to this early part of your timeline. Only because you spend so much time, you're so committed and driven for encouraging girls in STEM. When you look back on your early childhood and your affinity for math and having chosen those subjects, what do you feel fortunate that you had this passion for those subjects back then, and you chose them. How does that play into how you relate to young girls in STEM today?
I think it actually it set the foundation for what became like my life's passion, which is girls advocacy and girls advocacy in science and engineering and technology and math. And so as I look back, having the experience of being in an all-girls school and being one of 10 girls who chose science subjects, clearly it meant that the sciences weren't something that girls really gravitated towards. And here I was, this brave soul, wanting to explore these subjects, not really knowing what that was. But I realized, looking back in retrospect, I was setting my life up for what eventually has become now a passion for girls' education advocacy.
When did it actually occur to you that you'd like to pursue a career in aerospace engineering?
So when I was when I knew I was going to start college, and I knew I was going to do engineering because I was good in math and science, and we had a family friend who was a petroleum engineer, which is a big deal in Trinidad. The oil industry is our major export and economic revenue. And so petroleum engineering was a big deal. And we had a family friend who was a petroleum engineer. And I just knew he did something different. Like, he had a different career from everybody else I knew. You know, my mom was a nurse. My dad worked for the oil company. And besides that, the doctors and the dentists we would visit, I didn't know any other engineers. And I really didn't know what engineers did. So when I asked my mom, does he make a lot of money? And she said, yes. I said, that's what I'm doing. So I was setting myself up good, math and science. And then I had to decide, did I want to do petroleum engineering? Did I want to do chemical engineering? Because I loved chemistry. And then I said, no, you know what? I love planes. And I really want to know how to design planes. So I'm going to study aeronautical engineering. So fast forward, I migrate to the US and I'm a freshman in college. And literally January 20th, 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger blows up. I come home from school and this is all over the news. And it literally changes my life in that moment. Because before that, I didn't know what NASA was, what a space shuttle was, or a space vehicle, or, you know, you can be an astronaut. And it was in those moments that I decided that's what I wanted to do. And so I shifted my focus from aviation to aerospace engineering, and the rest is history.
You mentioned NASA. Take us there. The first time, when did it actually begin for you at NASA?
So 6 years to that day, when I decided that that's where I wanted to work and that's what I wanted to do, designing spacecrafts and rockets, I was driving into the gates of Kennedy Space Center in Florida to start what has been an amazing 20-year career. And it was mind-blowing, just being in that environment. I remember the first time being on the launch pad the day before a space shuttle launch. I just, it's the most vivid memory of being there. It was fascinating. Just, I don't know, gives me goosebumps now, but just an amazing, amazing environment. And, you know, I felt very fortunate to have that opportunity.
You know, it seems as though I'm going to jump around a little bit with you tonight, Camille. And only because I like to imagine each guest as a gem with many facets. And oftentimes people see someone and they only get a glimpse of one or two facets and they form an opinion. And what I like to do during these conversations is to twist the gem a little bit and expose the other facets. So I want to go back to the women you mentioned. You're the last of three girls and your mom and so on. How would you say the women in your life have helped to shape who you have become as a woman?
Well, definitely my mother is is was my first inspiration, even before I knew it. I know that as an adult, but I don't know if I knew that as a child. But she is the strength she has and the courage she has. She went back to school. She went to Jamaica to get her bachelor's degree in nursing. Well, this was before I was born, but she left her family and, my dad for a year or two to go and a nursing degree and come back. And she ended up at her retirement being the head of public health nursing in Trinidad and traveled all over. She knew every corner of that island because she would visit different health centers. So her strength and her courage and her tenacity absolutely was a model for me. I know. I definitely stand on her shoulders, and I got her traits.
So, do you remember your grandmother? Is your grandmother still alive?
Yeah, no, she was deceased. They were both deceased before I was born.
Wow. But you have these strong women values, and you got from your mother, and then you have a sister, and you yourself is an amazing mother. I saw a wonderful picture once with your mom, you and your daughter. How has motherhood impacted you as a champion for young girls and encouraging young girls into STEM?
Well, everything I do for every other young girl around the world, I started at home with my daughter.
Wow.
Raising her to be a strong, independent young woman, to value education, to value a love for learning, to be compassionate, to treat people equally, as human beings. She definitely, raising her has helped me to do what I do out in the world, mentoring other girls.
She of herself is quite brilliant and a sports person, an amazing gymnast herself. Do you see any evidence of her following in your footsteps in engineering?
Not at all. I have tried my best. Has been exposed to space. I don't know how many times out at the space center, and she knows. God, she's been around me. She knows everything I'm involved in, and she's like, "That's your thing, Mom. I don't. That's not me. So don't even try." She loves biology, and she's pursuing. She's at Yale University, freshman, pursuing a degree in molecular biology with a track to medical school, and she wants to be a pediatric surgeon.
Wow.
So that's her thing, and I want her to pursue her passion. I feel like that's what, we are put on this earth for, to use our gifts, find our gifts, and find our passion and share that with the world. And I want that for her. So if that's what she loves, absolutely 100% behind.
If you were to eavesdrop your parents and your daughter telling a stranger about you, Camille, how do you think each would describe you?
Oh my gosh. I think my mom said this to me the other day. I think she was visiting up here. I don't know what we were doing. We were driving somewhere. And I said something. And she said, "Wow, you are very," this is the adjective she used, I think, astute and very observant. She said, "You listen to everything going on, and then the wheels are turning, you formulate in your mind, and then you come up with your, you respond." And so I'd never heard her say that, and she had never said that to me before.
Wow.
I think that is something she'll say. My daughter, she describes to her friends that she thinks she has an amazing mom or something. She says, I tell my friends, my mom is amazing.
So, let me ask you this. Here you are at NASA, an engineer with a doctorate, an MSc in mechanical engineering with specialization in composite materials, and an MSc in aerospace engineering, specialization in hypersonic aerodynamics and propulsion. Lord of mercy. How, how do these two areas of specialization empower you to get to where you are today at NASA?
Oh, definitely. Um, it has in the so my first I went to NASA after my first graduate degree when I graduated my first master's, and that was something that actually gave me having my graduate degree gave me the opportunity to get the job there because they weren't hiring. NASA does not really hire. We've had a hiring freeze for decades, I think. And the only way we bring in people is through the internship program. And back then, literally, it was a teammate, a classmate of mine and myself who we were graduating with our master's degree, and they were really impressed with that and got special permission to bring us on. So I know that education really helped give me that opportunity. And then having my second master's really just helped me progress in my career because I think education is something we value in our society. And you really increase your chances of moving up the career ladder. The more education you have, I believe.
But Camille, here, okay, so specialization in composite material. Then you decide to go back and do hypersonic aerodynamics. I mean, to a non-scientific science person, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, don't you ever get tired of studying?
Nope.
No.
Because I had a goal. And I just focused on that goal. And a lot of people would say, my family would say, gosh, you're going to be a perpetual student. And yeah, you're like, okay, you don't really understand, but I know I have to do this for myself and, reaching my dreams and achieving my goals and stuff like that. So
I am curious about this. Here you are from the Caribbean, Trinidadian. You're at NASA. I am sure it's not an environment that you see many of you or much of you. I presume I think it's you alone. What is that like sitting in a room with your peers, only Caribbean person or it's a woman sitting there and having this vast array of knowledge? What does it say to you sometimes, or how do you? What are you thinking?
well, I'm not dwelling on it.
Right.
That's one. That's for sure, because this is my philosophy. I belong at the table, and I have a voice, and I'm going to let my voice be heard. It's gotten me in trouble sometimes, but, that's par for the course. So I don't dwell on it. Sometimes in the moment, I'll look around and be like, wow, I'm the only person of color, period. Male or female, sometimes in meetings or in a program or something. And, I am present for that momentarily, but I am also present that I represent like my community and my birth nation.
I got you.
And women of color and, all that stuff.
I take us into the Orion Project, if you can, right? And what is your involvement in building the next generation of crew exploration vehicles?
So the Orion Project is NASA's. So we had the space shuttle, which was a U.S. space vehicle that NASA designed and built. That we retired that years ago, back in 2010. And so the Orion spacecraft is the U.S. next generation of human transport, meaning we are going to be able to put astronauts in that capsule and launch them. not just to orbit our Earth, but really to go beyond Earth. Maybe not to the moon, because that's not in our design reference mission right now, but hopefully to an asteroid, to help us learn again how to interact with foreign planetary bodies and eventually onto Mars. And so that's what the Orion capsule and vehicle is. And so I served as the lead systems engineer and test manager for the crew module, which is the capsule like the Apollo. If you remember the Apollo 13, we all seen the Apollo 13 movie, that capsule that came back that transported the astronauts. It's a bigger version of that.
Lead engineer, what are some things you actually do on a project like that?
So back on that project, being the lead systems engineer and test manager, so the first thing in designing a spacecraft is really trying to figure out what are the requirements? What do we need to build? How do we know how big it is going to be? Who is it going to hold? Do we need to have an environmental control system? Of course, because we have humans in it. We need to have a propulsion system. What is the structure going to be like? It has to survive the vacuum of space, the thermal differentials of space. So you have to define all that up front. And so those are called requirements. And that phase is called requirements definition or development phase. And so we spent years trying to figure out what that is. First from the overall vehicle, but then you break it down into its different subsystems. So what does the propulsion system need to do? How much fuel does it need to have? How fast does it need to go? Where are we going? That kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And then we need to test it. As we are building it, we need to test it. And so what are those test requirements? How do we test it? We have to test all the environments to make sure it's going to work. So we do all that on the ground. So you have to lay all those things out. And that takes years, literally.
Then there's the International Space Station, ISS. Why? Give us an idea why it even exists.
So the space shuttle really existed to transport the big modules that made up the International Space Station. So the space shuttle was like this workhorse that allowed us to transport all these pieces that eventually we built in space, put together like Legos, and that became the International Space Station. It's a science laboratory in space. So we get to do experiments in a microgravity environment, which means that what we take for granted on Earth is that everything we understand, even the human body, was created in a gravitational environment. Gravity is a huge force. We don't pay attention to it because it's just something that's part of our lives. But the space station allows us to study the human body, study different plants and living organisms, cells, when there's not that gravitational force that's present. And so when that happens, we're learning, we're advancing our knowledge in different areas of science and technology. And we are having breakthroughs and discovery, things like drug treatment, potential candidates for solving diseases. So yeah, we are able to study the Earth, all those amazing Earth pictures you see almost every day. It's usually from the space station. And so, it's an amazing platform to do groundbreaking research.
With all that you have seen and exposed to, what still fascinates you about your environment?
What fascinates me is what we are able to accomplish for for the advancement of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are truly doing groundbreaking development, pushing the boundaries, pushing the frontier, learning about the universe, learning about our earth, learning about human beings and how we are made up. And then being surrounded by the most brilliant people. I swear, every day I am absolutely amazed by the capabilities of the people I work with.
When you reflect on your areas of specialization, such as aeronautical engineering, astronautical engineering, systems engineering, aerodynamics, celestial mechanics, guidance and control systems, is there an area you wish you had covered or intend to cover?
Is there an area? Say that again,
Is
Selma.
there an area that you wish you had covered or you were thinking about covering?
Oh
Because you
my
like to
lord.
study, Camille. You just love the laboratory.
Is there an area? You know what? I am an engineer by training, but I actually love science, like this version of science, because I'm in a science job actually, and every day I'm learning, you know, about biological systems and physical systems. And so I actually would love to do something in science. And I love remote sensing, which is looking down on our Earth using different instruments to study our Earth.
Good.
And I love that area because it has a direct benefit to um, to improving the quality of our lives and in the area of sustainable development. So that's another area that's really fascinating for me, observing the Earth.
Are there times when you're in that environment with among these brilliant minds and you guys are speaking a language with vocabulary most of us will never understand, that you're saying, I am so glad that I am so adept at mathematics and physics?
Well, I don't say I'm, because I don't really use it. I'm not really using calculus in my job. My job is more management now anyway, so the calculations and design part of my career is behind me. But I do say I'm glad I have a brain that could pick up new material and given some time, I could learn it and be able to communicate it in a way that people understand. I'm really happy about that because that is part of my daily job.
Beyond all the accomplishments and awards, what still surprises you about you, Camille?
What surprises me about me? That I still have a lot that I want to accomplish. There is still a lot I want to do.
A personal mantra, another one of your favorites. Can you share with us?
Say that again.
Can you share with us a personal mantra of yours?
A personal mantra of mine is excellence. Excellence is the key to neutralizing all the isms that we deal with. So it neutralizes racism, it neutralizes sexism, age differences. It really does. If you're excellent at what you do, people want the best on their team. And so they can care less what you look like, who you are, where you come from, as long as you're the best.
All right, Camille. I'm gonna start things up a little bit. You're young. You're black. You're a woman. You're from the Caribbean, and you're at NASA. You're in this environment. So there must have been challenges. What kept you going in spite of the challenges that you might have faced from time to time?
My personal um, values,
Uh-huh.
value system, and knowing that I am responsible for what I put out into the universe, regardless to what shows up in my life. So even if adversity shows up, which it has in my career, um, how I react to it, or how I deal with it, or how I see myself in that situation is what makes the difference. And so, you know,
If you were not doing what you're doing today, what would you like to have tried as a career?
I would have loved to be an astronaut.
Ah, okay. Any particular thing about
I
that?
love
Huh?
space. Maybe one day I'll get there.
I bet you would. You've spoken to various crowds, Camille, and lots of young women around the world. What are young girls eager to learn about you or from you?
My journey.
Mm.
How did I get to where I got to, having come from where I came from? And yeah, that's mainly what they want to know. Oh, and they want to know what I do now, and they want to know all about, NASA and space, and yeah, so my journey and my career.
What was one of the most humbling experience you've had talking to some of these young girls?
It's always when I get feedback I will get an email
Uh-huh.
saying, "Oh my gosh, you have allowed me to believe in myself, to know that I have a voice and that I can do anything that I put my mind to and I dream about." That's a lot of what I get.
One of the things that is evident in your journey, in your speeches, um, is that you have this commitment and passion for encouraging young girls in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Why why do you do that?
Because I realized. So I'll share a little story with you, very short. I was sitting at NASA headquarters. I worked there over the course of my career. This was about 9 or 10 years ago. And I was looking around. It was I don't know. It was a point in my life where I was doing a lot of introspection and looking back at my life. And I realized, oh my gosh, how many opportunities I've had and how fortunate I was. And then I started looking around and realizing there were no little ones who looked like me in the pipeline coming up in these fields. And I always wanted more people of color represented in the conversation on space, the global conversation on space. When we think about space, we think about the US and we think about Europe and we think about Russia, of course. But where's the diversity? And I knew that was only possible through education. And so since there was no little ones looking like me in the pipeline and education was the key, that's how I came about formulating this, advocacy platform to educate girls in science and space.
When you consider the Caribbean, when you think about the Caribbean and young girls, is that an area that you are passionate about reaching into and encouraging young girls to pursue STEM?
Yeah, so from the Caribbean perspective, I'm focused on these are the diversity of fields that you can actually pursue. Because in the Caribbean, I know in Trinidad, I can't really speak for other countries, growing up, it was always about you can either be a doctor or a lawyer, right? Or an accountant, perhaps. These were like the three things that it's like that's all parents know. And I want to show young girls in the region that there are, oh my God, a diversity of other fields. And within engineering, you can do biomedical engineering. You don't have to do mechanical. You can do, you can do astrophysics, or there are all these other fields. You can do genetics, for example. So it's really about showing them what is possible in terms of the breadth of areas within the science and engineering fields. In other parts of the world, it's a different, and in the Caribbean, at least in Trinidad, girls are really doing well for the most part in terms of pursuing higher education and pursuing the sciences. There are a lot of, I think UWE St. Augustine has 50% population in female engineering students. So it's the encouragement of females in those fields is not much of an issue, at least in Trinidad. But in other parts of the world, we even have to step back and advocate for girls to have secondary school education. We're not even talking about tertiary education or college. Even just secondary school education is a challenge, access to that. And so in other parts of the world, that's what I focus
on. Let's take a quick break. Let's take a quick break. I'll ask you when I get back.
Okay.